Welcome back to Ryzen 8 Minis. Today we'll be painting the Space Marines from the Warhammer 40,000 Recruit Edition. Enjoy. We're going to take the models in this box all the way from unpainted, unassembled minis, all the way through to based and painted Blood Angels. Hope you enjoy. The purpose of this video isn't to create a masterclass. The purpose of this video is to show you some of the processes I use when I'm creating something that's tabletop ready, when I just want to pick up a cheap box of miniatures, paint them and get them ready to play a game with my friends. Hopefully you'll find some of the stuff in this video useful. I'll show you a few different techniques like basic shading techniques, basic basing techniques, a bit of edge highlighting in there. There's a skin tone recipe in here. There's also a little bit of colour theory thrown into the mix too. All of this stuff tends to come together, which just enables you to speed up your workflow and then use that and build better looking minis even faster. Like I say, I hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you do, and do the usual likes, subscribes if you find it useful. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we're going to rattle through this. This is about 8 times faster than it normally would do. This whole process took about an hour. So I'm literally just chopping everything out with my sprue cutters and then sanding everything down with the sanding sticks. I've got 3 grades of sanding sticks from coarse all the way through to almost smooth. And then I'm literally just working everything through. One rookie mistake I made when I did this though is I chopped everything out and then assembled it all in a big pile, which then I had to work out how to put everything back together again. If you want a piece of advice, definitely follow the instructions on that one, follow the numbers, and they'll go together a lot faster. I was pretty pleased when I bought this. I actually bought it for 25 quid off eBay, so it's a really quick way to get started. Inside the box are 5 Space Marines and a Space Marine Lieutenant, and that's what we're going to be assembling today. You can see I'm putting it together with Tamiya plastic cement, which just causes all the plastic to melt and then get put together. So at this point, I'm now I've sprayed everything black, I've primed everything, and now I'm putting what's called a Zenithal highlight. So literally just a object source, so following the point of light and then putting a white highlight down on top in nice thin coats. I then follow that up with some Kimera Red, and I pop a red coat over the top, just a nice translucent red coat. I'll put it on about 3 coats over the top of it, and I repeat that across all the models. That's your base coat, and then you can see I'm doing it again. You want to follow the pattern of your Zenithal highlights, so you want to put your brightest red bits where the brightest lights are, and then the other bits have got shadows. I then follow that up using some Pthalo Green. The Pthalo Green is, I'm using Pthalo Green instead of black for my shadows, because green is the opposite to red on the colour wheel, so they make a really nice contrasting shadow. And so I'm using that and spraying that in opposite directions to the Zenithal highlight and popping that into all the shadows. I then go back again with my Kimera Red and pop those back over the top just to get rid of any overspray you get from the Pthalo shadows. So that just brings everything back up, and we're left with this lot. So this is our first shot of our Primaris Lt. This is the scheme I'm working off. So I'm looking at the various golds and the golds and where I've placed the highlights on this lot, and I'm using that to sort of work out a quick map of how I'm going to do everything. So here we go. Once that's all ready, I then start laying out some tones on the back of it. I'm actually not using the wet palette immediately. I'm actually using the little dry palette that comes with it. So what I've done is I've taken some scale 75 Victorian brass, and I've mixed some Pthalo Green into it. I'm using the Pthalo Green to sort of keep that green contrast running through the whole miniature again, but I'm just using that to base out all the metallic parts. Everything that's going to be gold in the miniature later on, I'm going to be painting up in this this green shade gold. And all I've done is I've mixed that high flow acrylic from Golden Acrylics on top of my Victorian brass, and I'm literally just using that to paint over the top. Again, the purpose of doing that is literally just to add a bit of contrast in. So now I'm using straight up Victorian brass, and I'm using that to just go over the top. I'm making sure when I'm doing this not to go right over all of the bits I've just painted, but I'm covering most of it. So 95% is being covered, and I'm just leaving the very, very darkest shadows and the very, very or parts of the metallics that are not going to be exposed to direct light. So that just builds that shadow effect. Then I start looking at the weapons, and I'm just literally just adding a bit of golden acrylic black, carbon black, on top of some mithril silver, and I'm literally just using that to add a darker tone to all the weapons. Literally adding that in, and that goes over all the chainswords and all the plasma pistols and the bolt guns and the bolt pistols. Then we take some straight up mithril silver and I use those to highlight all the weapons. And then we're back in. I've actually used Moonstone from scale 75, and that's just a lighter tone. I'm literally just bringing that in. It's probably covering 70% of what was covered before with the Victorian brass, and I'm literally just highlighting all those. So this is called a true metallic metal effect. It just adds a little bit of extra realism. I'm in two minds about how effective it is. I do think this one works in this case, but probably only because I've added the different colours into it. So now I'll start to use the wet palette. So this is just straight Kimera Red, and I'm literally just going back over the miniature, bringing up all the highlights, and then working over all the areas that I missed before, and literally just bringing those back in. So removing any overspray, and then really, really building that depth into the miniature. So going back over, I'm trying to, when I'm using the miniatures, follow the shapes of the miniature. So on the pauldrons, I'm using rounded shapes. On the legs, I'm using stripes down the legs, just to catch this highlight and add a little bit of extra 3 dimensions to it. I'm then using Kimera warm yellow and mixing that with Kimera Red to end up with a slightly reddy orange colour, which I'm then using to highlight the miniatures again. And now at this point, I've taken some Pthalo Green Oil paint and I mixed it with some thinners, and I'm spreading that over all the miniatures. And then cleaning everything up with some cotton buds, literally peeling it back, cleaning up all the miniature, removing as much as I can of the oil paint, but leaving it in the dark recesses. That just adds a little bit of, brings everything down a notch, but really brings in those shadows as well as automatically panel lining everything for you and bringing it back in. A really, really fast phase. I'm just working over some of the details with the reds, and then again highlighting over the top. In between this, I actually dried the oils with a hairdryer, which just helped speed the whole process up. It took about 5 minutes with a hairdryer, going over everything, making sure the oils are dry. You can't paint acrylics over wet oils because it doesn't really stick because of the white spirit. And again, we're just going through, doing all the final highlights, bringing everything back around. Following the same sort of shapes as the miniature I was doing before, but in a slightly smaller area. And by doing that over smaller and smaller areas, what you do is you eventually end up just really building those highlights. I'm not going to take them all the way. If I was painting this sort of like as a showpiece, I might take them all the way through and put specular highlights and all that sort of stuff with tiny dots of white. I've not done that to this point, but my objective is to paint this as a tabletop standard, not to go to full like display quality. All the time we're looking at the miniature, just making sure we've got everything right, taking a good look. Now just highlighting the edges of the swords, just to add a bit of extra interest going on. Still keeping that nice warm palette. Steadily building up. The idea was to give a hot metal. I'm not sure I quite nailed it with these miniatures, to be honest with you, but that's the point. You have to try these things and work through, and then some things you try, some things sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. That's what makes it fun, right? So I'm taking some Mournfang brown. I'm using that to mix up some skin tone at this point. So I've added some Pthalo green, and I've added some Kimera red and some Mournfang brown, and that gives us a nice paint over the top for our skin tone for our captain. And he is literally just, that just gets highlighted and highlighted and highlighted. I'll do another follow-up video on how to do skin tone and things like that, but I just wanted to whip through this video because no one wants to see me painting miniatures for 4 hours. So the basing, I'm literally just putting some neat thin super glue over the bases, and then dipping those in fine cork bark, and then topping on, adding more super glue and adding larger pieces of cork bark for some boldness. Once this is done, I take all the miniatures off the bases. They get primed black, and then roughly dry brushed in with a red, just to add a little bit of something else going on with the bases. And then I use some phthalo green just to put into the dark shadows again. So it follows the same sort of colour tone as the miniatures, but looks really effective. Yeah, really. So there we go. I'm really happy with the way these turned out. Are they display quality? No. Are they tabletop standard? Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to chuck these onto a table and have some fun. I actually plan to release some of the videos here as longer form videos, just to give people a better insight as to the process, because I appreciate this was so fast as to make it hard to understand. I'm always happy to answer more questions if people have got them for me. But yeah, if you found value in this, please give us a subscribe, give us a like on the video, and share it around on various social media platforms. You know the ones to do. If you want to talk to me directly, find me on Rising8Minis on Instagram. Thanks so much. See you next time.